Greetings.
Hello there.
Hello there. And welcome back to
Chiss Ascendancy.
episode 38. Today, we're doing the Star Wars Scooby-Doo crossover. Oh, so funny the first time I told that joke. Today we're talking about Tuscan Raiders, if you didn't already guess. So there's a ton of material. Tuscans have actually some of the richest lore in Star Wars history, believe it or not. Especially for background characters that really don't have any characters that stand out to the average fan.
Very similar to the Jawas. We talked about how influential they were in the Star Wars story. It's kind of like behind the scenes, and we were talking about what we talk about today, and I said, Tuscans maybe? And I was like, well, we did have the Jawas episode. They're kind of the yin to the yang. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot to be had here.
There's a lot to be appreciated. Yeah. And so we're going to get into that. First, there's not really that much news going on. There is a couple of cool things. One good news, hey, you know what? It's a blessing in disguise. So here's a really good news. Del Rey Star Wars, that is the group that publishes Star Wars books, put out 40 short snippet previews to the 40 short stories that'll be in November's release From a Certain Point of View from The Empire Strikes Back 40 years. And there was one that stood out to me. And if you're a hardcore Star Wars fan, if you've been reading the comics, I'm 27, but I've gone back in time and read the comics from the 70s and the 80s and whatnot. But there's a character in those comics that has not had enough love yet, and they're about to shower this guy with love.
Oh, yeah.
So if you haven't read the book From a Certain Point of View, or if you haven't seen the graphics, there's a very simple graphic at what do you want to call that? Like cover art for every chapter. And so, for instance, Master and Apprentice could be a silhouette of Qui-Gon Jinn, something like that, right? If it was a Thrawn thing, it could be a silhouette of, black silhouette with red eyes, or the Chimera, things like that. And so I was looking, and I'm like, okay, there's 2-1B, Skeleton Astronaut's gonna like that. I'm scrolling through, honestly, looking for Boba Fett, and I was like, there he is. There's one for Bosk and all those things. Mm-hmm. And there was one that I was like, what the crap is this? It's 2 pillars, and I was like, oh, is this the inverted bullcrap art where I have to look for the things that aren't there, and that's what the picture is? And I was like, what is this? I'll just read the description. Mm-hmm. And the character is like, hey, Lobot, you remember me? And Lobot's like, I'm sorry to say I have no recollection of you. And he's like, are you serious? And he's like, I am being completely serious. Because, of course, Lobot has been got the freaking...
They put a remote control in his head and took out his sense of humor.
Yeah, and so he's like, it's me, Jackson. And I was like, what? So if you don't know who Jackson is a Bugs Bunny tribute from the late 70s, early 80s Marvel Star Wars comics. That is a yellowish, greenish, basically a rabbit.
Officially, his fur color's green.
Yeah, his fur color's green. Pink. Yeah, and he has like a red jumpsuit on, kind of like what Bosk wears, but more reddish, orangish. Mm-hmm. And his, in the comics, his ship is called the Rabbit's Foot. And so
just in case you didn't know if he was a rabbit or
not.
He's
going to be made canon, and that's what Star Wars is all about. You guys can keep the Mandalorian.
Just hasn't been this excited about a canonization since Thrawn, by the way.
That's very two completely opposite ends of the spectrum. This guy we really need. This guy I really like. I want. But I'm very excited for that. And so that's exciting news. Jackson's coming back to Star Wars canon on a bigger scale. He's been in little bitty things, but complete story about this, my boy Jackson.
Yep.
It's so cool because Jackson, when he was written in the late 70s, early 80s, was absolutely 100%. If you look it up, he was written as a tribute to Bugs Bunny, who's my favorite cartoon ever. And it's because whenever Bugs is giving someone a hard time or he's arguing, he'll be like, I don't think so, Jackson. And so they just named the character Jackson. That's pretty funny. It's so shameless.
Yeah.
So anyways, we got a review we're going to read, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of the show. This is from a guy named Finn Clay. He's on Instagram as Finn Dormoon, toy photographer, very cool guy, and super easy to talk to. And the title is one of the best Star Wars podcasts in the galaxy. You heard it here first, folks. It says, this podcast is so much fun to listen to, ! I thought it'd be important to make sure you guys knew that he was excited. It says, the perfect blend of lore, news, speculation, humor, and passion creates the perfect storm of success.
Hey, yo.
We'll take it. It says, I love hearing about how Star Wars has molded our hosts, Joe and Samuel, as they have grown up together and how it continues to enrich their lives. This podcast feels like sitting on a couch and having a Star Wars conversation with good friends. 10 out of 10. Recommend tuning in every week.
Every week.
Every week. That being said, like this video, subscribe to the channel, share this video if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on Spotify, share it with your friends. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure that you give us a 5-star rating and leave a written review. We read them every week, and we appreciate it.
Every week that we get one, yeah.
So let's talk about those UR'OR'RRs. So, Tuscan Raiders, also known as Sand People by racist bigots on the deserts of Tatooine. Frickin'.
You know, if we're talking about Tatooine, everybody's a sand person. We're all homos. Homo sapiens.
Yeah, if you live on Tatooine,
you're a sand person.
You are a sand person. A sand woman, man, or sand would not care to answer.
And not just the men, but the women. And the children, too.
Mm-hmm. Every single one of them.
Every single one of them is a sand person.
That's so funny. Man, Obi-Wan, that poor guy, he needed SPF 6000. He looked great, and he got there.
He looks like a well-worn leather boot.
He looks like a time-lapse video.
Poor guy.
They're like, you ever put a plum outside for 20 years? Here's what it looks like. And he's like,
of course I know. He's me.
Hello there. Still looks better than frickin', what's that guy's name from Clone Wars? He's got like the roaches for pets. You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Not Sifo Dyas, but the other guy.
The senator.
The
senator's aide.
Yeah, whatever.
The chancellor's aide. I forget his name.
Man, I was like, just kill that guy. Ugh.
Yeah. I kept having flashbacks to Joseph, King of Dreams, and I was like, man, that's what could have happened to him. That's what could have happened to my boy Joseph.
Thank God Joseph had some
Good thing
roots.
he had some rocks that he could put around a tree and care for it and give his life a little bit of meaning.
Yeah, sing a great song. So it's interesting because the Tuscan Raiders are the first danger that you encounter ever in Star Wars for your main character, Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, for Luke specifically.
Yeah, I mean...
Unless you count when...
The backhand from Uncle Owen talking back about those power converters. I was going to Tashi Station. Shut up, Luke.
Or when he fell backwards pulling off the restraining bolt from R2. A little bit of danger. Hey, most people die in household accidents, all right?
Like
that could have been the end. He
Yeah,
could have hit his head on something really hard, and then all of Star Wars was a hallucination, and he wakes up, and Uncle Owen's like, so about those moisture evaporators. Join the Academy next season, Luke.
That's one of those, the security cam gets you getting, like, really just hurting yourself on accident, and somebody puts it on YouTube. That almost happened to Luke.
Yep.
Man, how gross. Remember he was looking at his sister, and he was like, she's so hot. Where's the rest of the video? What a sicko.
What a pervert.
Sicko. What a Taylor Anderson.
Oh. First and last name.
It's our friend who doesn't watch the podcast. I'm just making fun of how much he loves women. What? We all do, right? We're all homos. Homo sapiens. Dude, I can just see somebody that we know on Facebook being like, I'm a hetero sapien.
Also known as Taylor Anderson. We'll just go ahead and put that one out there.
I'll come over to your house, but I'm not wearing a mask. That was so funny. Oh, God. Okay,
anyway, let's talk about Tuscans.
Let's talk about some burger. So, I'm trying to be serious here. There's some serious work to be done about these Tuscans. Whew. Well, they're in... So they first appear in A New Hope, and so it's very cool. They have their place in the original trilogy, even though it's only in one movie of the three. They have a very important role, and they endanger Luke, and he's out there looking for R2-D2, who is rebelliously left the Lars homestead trying to find his master, Obi-Wan Kenobi, which is crazy to say. His primary, yeah. And so he's Luke's looking for them, and he comes across the Tuscans, and you get a sense that they're very dangerous. They're very dangerous right off the bat. And
so dangerous that Luke's like, look, Tuscans, let's get a closer look.
Yeah, what if we drove up right up on them?
Come on, C-3PO, you wuss. Grab my binocs. Oh, there's Banthas, all right.
Dude, those Banthas. Is it just
me
or
acted like it was a bear watching tour.
Yeah,
like they weren't
Let's get
perfectly
closer.
able of acknowledging
these guys aren't sentient and extremely violent and territorial. So they're in A New Hope, and then you see them again, not only in The Phantom Menace, but also, more importantly and more dramatically, in Attack of the Clones, Episode 2. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because by nature, Luke is so sheepish and so... I would say he's kind-natured, and he's not really one to push the envelope on things. And then you have Anakin, whose first encounter with the Tuscans is slaughtering an entire village for the right reasons. And so it's crazy because there's such a large part of the lore of Star Wars, and it's just, even as a casual Star Wars fan, if you go to Tatooine, you expect to see Tuscan Raiders. And there's such a unique culture because they're very primitive, but they're very religious, actually. And the reason that they're so violent is because they believe that their gods or the deities or whatever they serve has put them on Tatooine to rule the planet. And the reason that they're particularly hard on moisture farmers is because moisture is a gift from the gods to them. And so when you have people that are harvesting that, it's very, it's very much a slap in the face. It's sacrilegious to them, and so that's why they attacked the Lars homestead and they kidnapped Anakin's mom, Shmi.
She's out picking mushrooms or something.
Yeah, she was. Yeah, she was. She's picking mushrooms off those moisture evaporators. I'm Klieg Lars. Shmi is my wife.
Let me show you how a man can find a wife slave with the work of his hands.
He's cool. Let me show you how if I cut off my foot with the work of my hands. Dude, the Tuscans F that guy.
Let's talk about accident prone.
What?
Daggum Lars.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know what actually happened. Like, I want to know if that was an accident. Like, maybe who's pulling a restraining bolt off a droid and lost his legs.
No, I think that the Tuscans attacked him.
No, they did. But
it's also
did they,
cool.
Though?
It's also cool because Uncle Owen is young and he's there, you know?
And Aunt Beru.
Aunt Beru. I don't know why we sound like Chris just now.
That's what Luke sounds like.
But it's also cool because Star Wars is so interesting because you have characters that are just background, no-name characters. They're not really that important. Tuscans, in the grand scheme of things, after New Hope, are not important, except for that they serve a huge purpose in Attack of the Clones, and they've just been endeared to us over the years. Like, think about that. When the original Star Wars figures came out, they had all these characters. You know who they did make a toy of in 1978 or whatever year the first one came out? They didn't make a Grand Moff Tarkin toy. There was no toy of Grand Moff Tarkin until the 90s. So the toy that I got as a kid growing up, that was the very first ever Grand Moff Tarkin toy. But you know who they made toys of? Tuscan Raiders.
They're iconic, bro.
I know, it's
hard to separate one old white guy from that whole room of old white guys, but that Tuscan Raider, you know where he's from.
No, that's what I'm saying, is that it's Star Wars is the champion of, this thing's not that important, we'll make it important. Like, think about that. Like, Jar Jar, the most unassuming, most, like, just a bumbler, just an idiot, slapstick type of character. And then George Lucas, Jar Jar's the key to all of this. It's so interesting. You got Boba Fett's that way. Darth Maul's that way. Characters that are very much background, and they're pushed to the forefront. Boba Fett mostly just by the way he looks. Obviously, Darth Maul has a bigger role to play in The Phantom Menace, and of course, going back into Clone Wars and stuff. But one of the things that's so cool about Jawas and Tuscans and things like that, Ewoks, is that they take us away from the issues that we're going through on Earth. I think that's one of the reasons that Star Wars is so incredible, is because you can go to Star Wars and you can watch somebody else deal with their problems at your leisure.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is that it kind of forces you to think both on a smaller and a larger scale, right? Because you think about the things of how, like, even just states within America, how they interact and how varied it is. And then I try to think about establishing that between, like, entire planets. You know what I mean? Figuring out the logistics of that.
It's very crazy that the culture, especially in the original trilogy, it's like, here's the culture of this entire planet.
Right.
As we go along and Star Wars gets older, it diversifies. I think that would have been really cool. That's one of the sad parts about the Star Wars game 1313 getting canceled, because it was based on the underworld of Coruscant, where it's not the high up district, it's not Jedi Council, it's not the Senate, it's not any. Because you think about it, all the characters that we're following, the whole Star Wars saga, are very elite characters.
Right. Well, and I guess for all of the parts of it that just gave me cancer, that was a redeeming factor of the episodes with the those sisters in the last season of...
Oh, yeah.
What was their name?
I don't remember.
I don't remember their last name. But those sisters, they were super annoying, but it was cool to see kind of the workings of the underworld.
Yeah.
You don't see that a whole lot, except for, I guess, in that story arc where... Plo Koon goes down there, or when Ahsoka's looking for her lightsaber, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's very cool. So Tuscans are that, man. Tuscans are really kind of an embodiment of what Star Wars is about. An entire culture that's just built on nothing.
Yeah. Well, and I've been watching a lot of Ancient Aliens here lately. So
they give off some severe Ancient Aliens vibes.
Yeah, for sure.
They've been around.
Yeah.
They know what's going on. They've seen the chariots of the gods.
Here's the thing: is that. I don't know, Giorgio, or whatever his name is, the guy with the crazy hair. That's
aliens, that guy.
Yeah, there were no gods. It was aliens, and we've somehow forgotten this. He would be so in place here and be right this time, that...
He cracks me up because you said this the other day.
Right.
It's like, if you're religious or not or whatever, it's just like anything that 99% of the world subscribes to, whether you're a Christian or a Muslim or a Buddhist or an atheist... There's, Christians believe that the Lord God created it, and then you have atheists that it's more of a Big Bang. It's funny because those all are more plausible than, no, we were dropped off, we were aliens kids, and we put us in a daycare by ourselves.
Yeah.
Then they built the pyramids.
Yeah.
And he's looking at the camera like, I don't understand what your problem is. Why don't you see this?
I just like that he can list two ideas that both seem pretty far out, and he's like, that one's stupid. Everybody knows that. This one is 100% true. Mm-hmm.
It's funny because he's like...
two outlandish ideas, and one of them somehow makes more sense than the other.
And the poor person who has to make the graphics to try to give a thumbs up to what they're saying.
Have the same daggum clip of that space cargo, like either taking off or going down. They'll just put it in reverse.
Dude, it cracks me up because it's like, now what do the pyramids have to do with the pyramids in South America and Central America? Well, they're all pyramids, so that's something. They're pretty similar. And it's like, have you not ever seen buildings? Like, you go to Guadalajara, Mexico, you go to Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, you go to Hamburg, Germany. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, buildings are buildings. And then they'll be like, and if you look at the location of the three sets of pyramids that we know the most about, it actually forms an isosceles triangle. And I'm like, any 3 points on the face of the earth form some kind of a triangle, you dingus. They're lines. Like, what do you want? But it's so funny because someone in the graphics department at the History Channel is like, God, I gotta make this look like it works. It's just so funny. I could watch Ancient Aliens forever.
Oh, I could talk about it for days.
But Tuscans kind of do have that Ancient Aliens vibe.
They
of,
do.
We were here first. We know the truth.
Yeah.
The water, those are our ancestors.
Yeah.
You're drinking our ancestors. But it's very cool because they've transcended... What do they sound like when they're angry?
They're not angry ever.
That's true. So it's cool because they've also transcended...
Basically a society of Bill Burrs that can't speak.
Yeah, they're just muffled.
They're just all ticked off all
They're
the
probably
time.
angry because they've been wearing a mask their entire life.
Oh, here we go.
Imagine getting in your car and not taking your mask off, you know? What if it's just all the time? Anyways, don't get too political. But they also show up in Rebels. Very cool. The episode Twin Sons.
Yes.
They attack Ezra, and then also...
Anybody else hoping that maybe
he died?
Get killed?
I thought it was funny that Maul slaughters him. They're like, ruh, 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 and he's like, I thought that was cool. I think that was kind of cool because it kind of shows, I don't know, it kind of puts Anakin and Maul like they all
and
want
it humanizes
success
all the Sith that like who among us wouldn't try and kill them.
Yeah, exactly. And then of course they made an appearance in episode 5 of The Mandalorian.
Yes.
Questionably my favorite episode, even though a lot of people didn't like it. I loved it on the trip to Tatooine. I do love that, you know, when you're watching, let's say you're watching a documentary on the war between Native Americans and settlers, or if you're playing, or let's say you're which Assassin's Creed is the one where you're playing as Native American?
3?
I don't remember what the name of it is.
Assassin's Creed 3.
But you're playing as, what's the character's name?
It's a name.
Yeah, anyways.
It begins with a letter.
But you're playing as an Indian character, and it's very cool because typically, like, you realize that their way of life is much different than a settler's, and it's kind of, it's very, well, the white man has the gun, but it's like the speed and the, you know, it's the way of war. It's kind of like when, you know, when America went to war with Vietnam, it was, you know, all bets were off because they could be in the trees, they could be, you know what I'm saying? Like, just the way of warfare was so much different. And I really like the native...
He goes by Connor.
There you go. Not a very Native American name. He's mixed,
the main
though, right?
character is Ratonhaketon.
Yeah, why wouldn't you go by that?
Because, you know...
But I think it's very cool.
What's easier to say?
I think it's very
Take your
cool.
mat and walk, or your sins are forgiven.
Oh, get out of here. I do like that in The Mandalorian, they gave the Tuscans that native, like, native species vibe because when Mando and fake Harrison Ford are looking for their bounty, they turn around and the Tuscans are just like...
Mando and Minnesota Cuke.
Yeah, exactly. They're just standing there. You remember that? They're like, they're looking and the camera pans and the Tuscans are just like... You know, they're just right there.
How?
Yeah, I like how they just snuck up on them. That was so cool. And then I loved the freaking sign language.
Yeah.
Because there's obviously a huge language barrier. And I was thinking, oh crap, Mando's going to have to kill these Tuscans. But it's cool because he shows them respect and they show him respect. And the sign language, dude, I was going buck wild. I was on my couch and I was like, do it. You know, it was so cool. And then he gives them was it the binoculars?
Yeah.
He's like, those are brand new. He's like, yeah, they'll like them. I thought that was cool. And then in the...
Don't they already have a pair of binoculars all the time?
Built-in binoculars. That's so funny. It's weird because George Lucas is not a fan of Star Wars characters having glasses because it's a scientifically advanced society. But I imagine that those have to enhance their vision somehow, right?
Sure.
I don't know. This decreases my
I was
field
about to
of
say,
vision.
my peripheral vision
Gone.
has never been better.
That's why they walk in single file, so they can talk to each other.
Right? So they can have any idea what's going on.
But it's really cool because Tuscans have stayed relevant, and there's even a really cool story when Marvel started to really take over the comics side of things after the Disney acquisition. In 2015, they launched a first long series of Vader comics, and at the end of the first run in 2015, they had their 25th episode, or what do you call that? What do you call a comic when they put them out? Issues. They had their
Everybody's
25th.
got 'em.
They had their 25th issues, and they had an epilogue, like an extra story at the end called Coda. And at the end of the very first episode or issue of the Vader comic, he's talking to Boba Fett about finding out the name of the kid who flies the X-Wing.
Yeah.
And he's like, hurry up and find me what I'm looking for because I'm sick of this world. And then the last little picture before the issue ends is all my business here is concluded. And you find out that while Vader's on Tatooine talking to Boba Fett and Black Chrysanthemum trying to find Luke Skywalker, he just slaughters a random extra village of Tuscans. So when it says
when Rome,
when he says my business here is concluded, it's just him standing in a village of Tuscans and they're all dead. And so the story at the epilogue of the 25th issue is called Coda, and it's a story of, and I don't know if that's the name of the Tuscan or what, but there's a story of a Tuscan Raider who he's the only one that survived that slaughter. And he's running away, he's running for his life, and he comes across a separate village of Tuscans. And I don't know why, but this is the first time that I'm like, there's more than one? I just imagine there was a massive amount of Tuscans in one space, but it makes sense that there's multiple tribes.
Yeah, especially since they
villages.
seem to be nomadic.
Right. And, because you see, like, all the banthas moving and sometimes stuff like that. Yeah,
all their structures look temporary, movable.
Mm-hmm. So it's really cool because he runs to them and basically in Burke speak, he tells them that he's been attacked, and in the pictures, we'll put some of these pictures in the video, but some of the pictures are he's describing Vader attacking the village, and it just looks like an evil spirit. It's very cool because you can see Vader, but it's like how he's recounting it because it's a very scary situation.
Did Tuscan Raiders evolve from porgs?
No. Hey, Adam, if you can track our time right now so we can put that picture. So we don't have to squirm back and forth. But yeah, there's a couple of pictures because it's important to put those in there. But basically, they're in awe. And you got to think, from Attack of the Clones to between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, and now after New Hope, they've always been kind of plagued by different versions of what they call a shaman, which would be a Jedi, or in this case a Sith, people who can use the Force, and they don't understand that. And so they basically instantly, from hearing the story of the death and destruction of this village, they give Vader a god, they give him a godlike status. And so this poor Tusken Raider, he's been running for his life through the desert all night. Single file by himself. To hide his numbers. And so basically he gets there and he's like, yeah, guys, man, you wouldn't believe what happened. And you know what they do? They burn him alive as a sacrifice to their new god, Darth Vader, under
another sacrifice.
Under
I don't want another sacrifice. Okay.
A wooden statue that they've built of Darth Vader based on the description that he gives them. And it's just very cool. There's such a crazy group of people. But a couple of other stories that they're in that were really, really cool that are, and obviously canon now, are from the 40th anniversary from a certain point of view from A New Hope. If you're new to Star Wars books, from a certain point of view,
I think if you've never read a Star Wars book, this would be like a really cool.
Yeah, this would be a very good intro into Star Wars novels for you. I know.
Because it's short stories, you can pick up and put it down at leisure.
Yeah,
and it's going to be more familiar.
One of our buddies that's very faithful to the channel, Jared Grigg, he was talking about wanting to get into Star Wars stuff or wanting to get into Star Wars audiobooks. And so this would be a great one because, like you said, there's different readers, there's different stuff.
I'm going to apologize in advance about the Clue Horn episode.
Yeah, there's a story in there called the Clue Horn Cantina Caper.
It hurts.
If you're not a completist, skip it. I'll just say that. But
I had to, but I did not enjoy it.
Right. But there are two stories from this collection of 40 short stories to celebrate 40 years of A New Hope. And so the first one is called Riren, and that's by the author Sabah Tahir, which sounds like a Star Wars character, but that's cool. And it's very interesting because Riren is a Tuscan Raider, female, young girl, who does not like the concept of it's very rare that they let their young women fight, that they let their young women become warriors. It's like almost never heard of. And so to escape kind of her role, the caste, I guess, it's very old school system, she makes a deal with a local farmer or whatever, and if she can get onto the Jawa sandcrawler and steal a precious rock from the Jawas and bring it to him, he'll help her get transportation off-world. My question is, how the freak do they talk to each other?
Who?
This young Tuscan lady and I assume someone who speaks Basic. Oh, maybe. He's trying to make a deal with her, and he's like, I'll be right back, I have diarrhea. But anyways, she makes her way, and the cool connection, it's interesting because it's a brand new story, right? A lot of these stories plug into, the Dianoga, or the things that actually happen, and then we tell you about this character backstory. The way they tie her in is she sneaks into the underside and into the sandcrawler that the Jawa was driving around, and she's looking for a distraction. Well, when R5 implodes, and Uncle Owen's like, "What are you trying to push on us?" And the Jawas are like, no!" Like, when they are all yelling at each other, that's her cue, that's her way to get in. And the story goes that as she's looking, she's drawn to a certain box. Now, you got to remember, she's a Tuscan, so she's lived in it's very similar to, when people leave the Amish community and they go into the real world for 9 months or a year, however long it is.
You ever seen Kingpin? It's basically that.
But it's crazy because they're exposed to all this stuff that they've never done before growing up. And so for her, she's never been outside of her tribe. She's never experienced anything outside of her tribe. And so she's
never walked side by side with someone.
Yeah.
Only single file.
Dude, imagine holding hands. Her mind will be blown. But she gets into the sandcrawler, and this is really strange because she feels drawn to a certain box. And as she opens it, she finds a shiny green stone inside. And as you're reading, it's kind of one of those you tell me moments, it's up to the reader. But as you're reading it, it makes it very apparent that she realizes that this isn't a stone, this is a green crystal. And instead of bringing it to the farmer or whoever's going to trade her, she decides she's going to take this for herself, and if she can find a way off-world, she will, and if she needs to trade this crystal for it, she will. But she basically decides she wants to make her own way. And here's the thing that's strange to me. I think they're leaning you down the path that
she's a little force sensitive.
She's a little force sensitive, and this is a kyber crystal revealing itself to her. So that's pretty cool.
That's pretty neat.
Pretty cool. All right.
Tell it's an aspen because the way that it is.
You can tell it's an aspen. And then the second story that's in there, that's in canon now, is now this is a huge bridge into the second half of the episode, but it's a story called Rights by John Jackson Miller.
I really liked this one just because as a guy who took classes on kind of like communal psychology a little bit.
Ooh.
You talk about, rites of passage that are either explicit or implicit in society, certain things that someone will do that kind of puts them on a path. So that kind of influence that has on an individual has always been very interesting to me. Mm-hmm. And so to watch the way that this plays out in Sand People culture is just very interesting to see what steps they have to take to become a man or to become a warrior or, to take on the next piece of responsibility.
Right. Yeah, so you have a main character in this story called Akoba. And it's interesting because there's one thing that's cool about the Tuscans is their names always have apostrophes. So it's like, and many times you have instead of, okay, so if you're Samuel and you have a son and you want to name him Samuel, he would just be Samuel Jr. or Samuel II, and then you have another one if it was your grandson, he would be Samuel III. Mm-hmm. But the way that they do that in the Tuscan community is they put the letter A in an apostrophe before that name. So there's a character named Yark, and he has a daughter who becomes the leader of the tribe, and her name is Ayark. Yeah, so Akoba is a juvenile Tuscan who's him and his cousins are trying to go on this rite of passage to become warriors, and their job is they have to kill a young juvenile crate dragon, which is a big deal on Tatooine. That's the dominant species, really, and so they do it.
For reference, we see the skeletal remains of a crate dragon in A New Hope.
Mm-hmm. And what's funny is when R2 and C-3PO are walking and they're trying to get from the crash site of their escape pod and they get picked up by the Jawas or make their way to, Luke's place. That giant skeleton, when they left Tunisia in the 70s, they just left that there. And so local Tunisians were like, Jesus, what is this? Like, they didn't know what was going on. They were like, I told you guys there were still dinosaurs here. But young Akoba defeats and kills a crate dragon. He's kind of the ringleader. It's him and his two cousins, but he's kind of the main guy, right? Mm-hmm. And so he goes to the tribe's leader, whose name is Ayark. Now, that's important. You want to remember that name. Very important name. Very important name. And so Ayark is the tribe's leader, and so Akoba's like, yeah, we killed this crate dragon. Like, he's really kind of puffing his feathers. And so Ayark is like, hey, just so you know, that was a juvenile crate dragon, and you didn't do anything important. Like, kind of putting him in his place, Mm-hmm. And he's like, we could have killed regular crate dragons if we wanted to. And she was like, first of all, you're an idiot. Secondly, she was saying that when she took over the tribe years and years ago, the tribe was so weak that they had to kill weaker animals as the rite of passage because they couldn't afford for young people not to become warriors. That's how small and how defeated the tribe was. And she was basically like, don't mess up the name of the tribe, spare yourself. And so Akoba is like, yeah, well, we're gonna go on a raid. We're gonna whatever. And so it turns out that Akoba and his two cousins are the Tuscans that attack Luke Skywalker. And they're getting ready to go into the desert, and Ayark is like, there's magics out there. You got to be careful. There's a shaman.
There's this crazy old wizard. He makes loud noises.
Yeah, and so as they're, picking over Luke's stuff, they hear this shriek, and they turn around, and they pee their pants because Ayark's told them, there's a shaman out there, and he'll get you. And so it's cool because that's the story of, kind of learning, your transformation from youth to adult is about being a warrior, is about strength, but it's also about wisdom. Mm-hmm. It's also about applying the things that you've learned. And it's cool because John Jackson Miller is a gangster, and he canonizes the character Ayark here, which he wrote for the novel Kenobi. And Ayark is a giant, giant bridge from canon Star Wars to legend Star Wars as a Tuscan Raider. Some of the most iconic Legends characters are, in the Legends side of things, the bridge that is to canon is Ayark. And so in 2015 or something like that, maybe 2012, when the Kenobi novel came out, Lucasfilm had already been purchased, but the idea and the green light to make the book had happened before George sold Star Wars. Mm. So the book Kenobi, as soon as it came out, was Legends material, which hurts my heart because it's such a good book. And the main, not antagonist, but the main Tuscan character in this story is Ayark. And nobody realizes it's a female because they're Tuscans. But they mention her as being feared. They basically call her a warlord, and she's feared by all the local farmers because if you mess with the Tuscans, they're not peaceful, but they're not going to mess with you. But if you mess with the Tuscans, you better know that Ayark's coming for you. And the local humans call her Plug Eye because she has one good eye and the other, binocular or whatever, focal lens or whatever that they have is filled with a red jewel that glints a bright red in the sun. So they call her Plug Eye because she has that eye socket plugged in with a red jewel.
Preachy.
And basically, throughout the story of the Book of Kenobi, you realize that the Tuscans are attacking, but they're being pushed into the attack because their land is getting squeezed. And the farmers are going out and attacking them as well. And there's actually a relationship that develops between Kenobi and Ayark, where basically Kenobi's communicating to her, you leave these set of people alone, and I'll keep these other set of people from attacking you. And so there's a cool cohesion there that I like that John Jackson Miller kind of brought back up in the new canon story, which is, I'm telling you, bro, you go in that desert, there's magics out there that'll get you.
It kind of reminds me of James Lucchino canonizing some of the things from Plagueis when he wrote
Tarkin.
Yep. Yeah.
Absolutely.
114D, he made that canon, so it's what's canon, what's legends.
Yeah. That's very cool. I would do the exact same thing. It's very Timothy Zahn does some of that stuff. You know, you have Admiral Arlani and stuff that he makes canon. And so it's interesting because Ayark, you know, Plug Eye, is the bridge between canon and Legends because in Legends material, Ayark has an adopted sister whose name is Kashyyyk, not to be confused with Kashyyyk where the Wookiees live. And Kashyyyk marries a human that he used to be a Jedi, and he had been put into the Jedi Order by his family, and as things kind of got crazy, he wanted to go visit his family, and when he went to visit them, their entire world had been burned to the ground, his family included, and out of grief, he exiled himself from the Jedi Order, and on his travels, he crash lands on Tatooine, and he decides, you know what, there's a group of people out here called the Tuscans, and they live a nomadic life, they live a solitary life. This is where I can focus my energy and I can live out my grief. That character's name is Sharad Het. And Sharad Het marries Ayark's adoptive sister, Kashyyyk. And when Sharad Het and Kashyyyk get married, they have a son named Asharad Het. And Asharad Het, 125 years later, is Darth Crate from the Legacy comic series.
So, how long do Tuscans live?
Well, here's the thing. So, Sharad is a human being, okay?
Right.
So, he's, you know, whatever. He dies in combat. He doesn't die of old age. So, when he dies in combat, Aurora Singh actually kills him. And when Aurora Singh kills him, Coyote...
How do you feel about Aurora Singh?
Not a fan.
I don't really like it that much.
But when Coyote Mundi, he's going, because he's hearing Tuscans are... Because Sharad Het leaves, the Jedi, and he's kind of like, I got to figure things out. And so they hear that Tuscans have been just attacking folks, and like very organized, not chaotic, not necessarily like barbaric or savages, like very, very like, pointed things. It's kind of like in Rebels whenever the rebellion are like, hey, these attacks have been definitely more precise, and that's how they introduce Thrawn. So Coyote Mundi goes to Tatooine to talk some sense into Sharad Het. Well, it turns out some of the violence has been brought on because the Hutts want to get, they want to cause infighting between the settlers and the Tuscans because it makes better business for them. And so in Legends, Aurora Singh is actually a fallen Jedi, and she defeats Sharad Het in combat. And his last wish is, take my son, who's already a teenager, take my son, get him out of here, so that he can live a better life. And that's Asharad Het, and he joins the Jedi Order. So technically, Sharad and Asharad are part of the Tuscan, creed, kind of to go back to Mandalorian stuff. But they're not, whatever species Tuscans are, the Sharad Het and Asharad, they're part of the group of Tuscans, but if Tuscans are a separate species, they're not that. They're humans.
Yeah.
So the thing that's crazy about Asharad is he becomes a Jedi, and him and Anakin are good friends. But because Anakin hates the Tuscans and Asharad is a Tuscan, he attacks Asharad Het. Nice. And he's held back, and they never are really friends again. And during Order 66, Asharad Het escapes, and he thinks, what I'm going to do? I'm going to go back and I'm going to take up the warlord position that my dad owned on Tatooine. So he returns to Tatooine, and he's doing, the same old thing, raiding farms, killing folks for fun. And he gets too close to the Lars homestead. And so our boy Obi-Wan Kenobi confronts him. And he realizes who he is. And he's like, you need to leave. And, Asharad is like, I'm here with my people. He's not going to back down in front of... It's kind of like pre-Vizsla with Darth Maul. He's not going to just back down in front of everybody and go, you know what? You're probably going to beat me in a fight. Let's just shake hands. So they fight, and Obi-Wan cuts off his arm. And he says, I won't kill you, but you have to leave this planet.
Classic Obi-Wan.
He banishes him from Tatooine, which is pretty ballin' because it's like, this is my home now.
Yeah.
You get out of here. So he makes Asharad leave, and so Asharad, still filled with anger, still filled with hate, he's hurting from his dad's death that was never really settled. I don't think he ever gets to kill Aurra Sing like he wants to, but he's held back. And attacked by the Jedi, then attacked by the clones, then has his arm cut off by Obi-Wan Kenobi. So he's very, very dejected, very angry. He becomes a bounty hunter. One of his trips takes him to the Sith homeworld of Korriban. And while he's there, this is during the reign of the Empire, he meets a Sith Lord there that's been in hiding. And he turns to the dark side, and he begins his training. Well, sometime in that space, before they attack the New Republic, the Yuuzhan Vong capture and torture Asherad Het for years. I'm talking 30 years. And by the time he escapes, he's been embracing the dark side and the pain, and he's been reading the books of the old ancient Sith, and their word itself has been sustaining him. So he loses all track of time. And by the time he gets back to the real world, per se, it's like 30 years later. So this kid who grew up pre-Clone Wars era this is 30 years after Return of the Jedi. So this is, 60 years later. He has the Yuuzhan Vong believed in, they didn't believe in technology. To them, technology was an abomination. And so their weapons were living animals and things like that. And so he has this armor that's over him that's sustaining him. So by the time that he, in the group that he founds called the One Sith, so instead of, 2 Sith, no more, no less, there's multiple, there's tens, if not hundreds of them, but they're one group. They're one Sith. That's an order that he begins. And so he fights and takes over the galaxy. And this is 127 years later, after
wild.
A New Hope. So he's 200 years old maybe at this point. But he's being kept alive because it's kind of a symbiotic relationship, very much like what Darth Bane went through. So the armor is consuming him and killing him, but it's also kept him alive for all these years. And basically, it takes... he's attacked by his own people, of course, typical Sith stuff. But it's just crazy to me because at one point, this guy rules the galaxy, right? At one point, nobody knows the One Sith exists because they stay in hiding this whole time. There's just all kinds of stuff in the Legacy of the Force and the Fate of the Jedi series that I need you to read so we can talk about it. But Darth Crate is always in the background. And at the very end of the Fate of the Jedi series, remember a couple of episodes ago when we talked to you guys about the Ones, there was the father, the son, and the daughter, and then there was a woman who found her way there somehow, and she became the mother, and she drank from the font of power and all this other stuff at the same time, and she became the entity known as Abeloth, and nobody could defeat her. Well, Luke Skywalker was joined by some random guy, that he didn't know, a Darkseid user, but at that time it was like, if we don't stop Abeloth, she's taking over everything. She's going to destroy everything because she feels all that loss, and she wants everybody else to feel the loss that she feels. Like Thanos on crack. And so some Darkseid user that we don't know who he is joins forces with Luke Skywalker to defeat Abeloth, and then he just disappears again. That Darkseid user is Darth Crate. And it's crazy. There's a vision at the very beginning of the Legacy of the Force series that Luke is having a vision of a man in dark armor sitting on a throne, and he doesn't know who it is. And then you've got Jason Solo, who's having similar visions, and he's like trying to prevent it. They're both having visions given to them by the Force of the rise of Darth Crate, but they don't know it. And 125 years after A New Hope, probably 60 years after Luke's dead, his great-grandson, Cade Skywalker's alive. Darth Crate finally rises to power. And this is the vision that they've been avoiding. And he's the Darksider that Luke joined forces with for a split second to stop Abeloth, and he just leaves.
Pretty wild.
And so Darth Crate is this character who lives, hundreds of years based on his...
Protecting the moisture of the galaxy.
Yeah. It's all based on the moisture. So at some point in the Star Wars universe...
It's all about the cones.
The cones? What's that from?
It's a Parks and Rec reference.
Oh. It's crazy because at the end of the day, at one point, even though it's Legends... there is a character that rules over the entire galaxy, which you got to think, the known galaxy and the known republic has been expanded over time.
Right.
So the largest, the furthest in the future that we get, and the largest the galaxy, all being one unit, like for instance, the Chiss are now in the picture and things like that. The largest piece of the galaxy we've ever seen is at one point ruled by a Tuscan Raider.
Pretty wild.
Pretty full circle, huh? The earliest danger in the galaxy for our heroes, and the latest danger in the galaxy for our heroes, if you're going by that timeline. So it's a pretty full circle thing. I could go on forever about Darth Crate. He's so freaking cool. He names himself Darth Crate, like a crate dragon. It's pretty raw. And so there you have
Batman.
it. Yeah, he is what he fears. Although crate dragon is much cooler than bats. So, what if Batman just lived upside down? Anyways.
He doesn't.
So, very, very cool. Tuscans, they permeate all the parts of the galaxy. They're
Eventually, yeah.
One small thing that I did wonder about is if there's off-world Jawas, what if this little lady, Riren, gets off of Tatooine, and in the Mandalorian trailer, when he's flying by and there's a Tuscan on a bantha, I think he's on Tatooine. But I often wonder if Jawas can make it off-world, can Tuscans make it off-world?
I mean, they can. I just think about...
And continue the thing is, the difference is the tie to their way of life.
Right. Jawas can exist anywhere. It's not about religion.
There's
about
not
stuff.
Yeah, it's about things. Dude, their minds would explode on Coruscant.
But then you see, like, everything that the Tuscans are about. It's about their religion, and that's tied to Tatooine almost entirely. So it's kind of weird to... I mean, you get an atheist sand person, maybe he'll move off,
The water's worthless to me. Yeah, it's crazy. Also, in sand people culture, you never remove your coverings. Even if you're married to someone, you only, you don't remove your coverings or have any kind of physical contact until marriage.
Nice.
So you could end up with a real Jacob Rachel situation there. The good thing is you can lie to all your friends if your wife is ugly because they're never going to see her without her outfit on. You're bragging. Yeah. I was telling you guys before we started recording, I was watching a video here recently just about Tuscans and stuff. They've been on my brain lately. And it's very cool because we were talking about, the guy in the video was like, and his brother... I'm not kidding. And it puts the, a little picture of the, the book or whatever on screen, and it's literally like R apostrophe R apostrophe R R R apostrophe R. As the writer, what do you like? What are you doing? But very cool. And Tuscans, they're great for, they're just been in Star Wars for forever, and it's really interesting because last week me and Skeleton Astronaut were talking about it, and he ended up doing some cool photography of a Tuscan, and then just recently the Black Series, I got my hands on some Black Series Tuscans and did some photography of them, and so it's very cool. They're a staple, I would say, in the Star Wars community.
Yeah, for sure.
It's really wild how much of a staple they are when you come just to species.
Yeah.
You have humans... but think about this, other than Chewbacca, Tuscans are bigger than the Wookiees. Think about that. What do you think?
I would say so until we got to the prequels, because they play such an influential role in Episode 3, especially.
Yeah,
but you don't ever see the Wookiees as a society until then. You know what I mean? So I think that the idea of a society plays a bigger role than the idea of an individual.
Yeah. So obviously, Chewbacca is more famous than any Tuscan. But if you take Chewbacca out of the picture, okay, take him out of the picture, and the Tuscans in Episode 2 are a bigger deal than the Wookiees in Episode 3.
Let me ask you this.
Okay.
What about the droid attack on the Wookiees?
I knew you were going to say that, dadgummit. It's a good point. It's, memes-wise, the Wookiees have the favor. But other, you got humans, you have...
And the favor of Ki-Adi-Mundi, who was also the guy who went to talk about...
To Shroudhead, yeah.
To Shroudhead. So,
Dude, they have a cool...
when all that's concerned, who's Ki-Adi-Mundi more concerned about? I rest my case, the Wookiees.
Yeah, but Ki-Adi-Mundi was a schmuck at the end of the day.
He was trying to rally his troops.
Oh, dude, there was someone the other day. It was a poll that was like who would win in a fight, and it was like Savage Opress or Ki-Adi-Mundi.
I think Ki-Adi-Mundi would
And I
eat
was like,
Savage's lunch.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's a Jedi master. When you watch Order 66, you watch all these guys get pwned. He holds his own for a good second.
He gets
It's a while.
thrashed
He's
in a minute, but he's
would
alive
also,
for quite a while.
Yeah, I would also like to point out that when you're
When's
playing...
the last time you had 25 people shooting at you at point blank range?
Yeah, you know what we need to do? All you guys who don't think Ki-Adi-Mundi's anything, you know what? Let's just go to a local gym, and I'll get me and 20 of my closest friends to grab a bag of dodgeballs, and we'll see how long you last. You stand in one place with a stick.
We'll even give you a little gaffy stick.
But it's interesting because... man, frick, I forgot my point. We were talking about dodgeballs.
Good.
Dadgummit. But yeah, Ki-Adi-Mundi's such a cool character.
Dang, let's talk about that for a second.
What?
So, Patches O'Houlihan says you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball, right?
Okay.
But Luke does not dodge a wrench in A New Hope. And yet, he still dodges some blaster bolts.
Uh-huh.
So, can you dodge a ball without being able to dodge a wrench?
I think that the idea is if you can dodge a wrench, which is much smaller and much faster, dodging a ball comes easy. So yes,
Right.
I think that
But
you
then-
can dodge a
but
ball
then-
and not dodge a wrench.
But
You're thinking of an argument as you go right now. But hear me out.
listen.
Okay, go ahead.
Luke doesn't dodge the wrench.
What are you talking
Was
about?
Luke even force sensitive?
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about when he's getting F to death with that gaffy stick, bro.
Are you talking about it, A New Hope?
Yeah, man, he gets fricked to death, bro.
Well,
They're dragging him by the foot through the sand. Is he even force aware?
Okay, yeah, but
Let's
think
talk
about
about
it.
Darth Bane before he's like...
Okay,
Yeah,
but the context is that scene with Luke in it was filmed in 1976 versus a new story being written in the early 2000s for Darth Bane.
but still, he's supposed to be like the GOAT Jedi.
No,
and
he's
then
not supposed to be. He for sure is.
And then, he just gets shreked by some sand people.
What did you want? Did you want him to shock him to death?
Yes.
Oh, we're getting out of hand here. But Tuscans. UR'OR'RR'R. So,
By the way, do yourself a favor. There's a video. It's got 153,000
this
views.
is a good way to end the video.
Called I Love Sand People War Cry. Or I Love Tusken Raider War Yell. Something like that. Let me look at it. All right. I love the Tusken Raider battle cry. In parentheses, 10 hours. It's 10 hours and 1 second long.
And you might ask yourself, who
It's-
listened to that for 10 hours?
Not in
The answer is 153,000 people.
53,000 views.
And even if it's just 10 people that really like it, they've listened to it 15,000 times each. So it's a win-win for this guy who's made the video. Oh man, Tuscans are so cool. I really would love to see, I'm excited to see more Tuscans in Mandalorian Season 2. Man, I know that there's probably not enough there to do a whole series or anything like that on the Tuscans, but I would like, I don't know,
There's enough there.
for a series?
Yeah.
I don't know. It would be cool. I would be in favor of it. They really catch my eye. Like when I'm scrolling through
Supernatural's
Instagram.
been going for like 25 seasons, all right? They're running on fumes for the last half of them.
Oh.
There's enough there for one short series of Tuscan Raiders.
Maybe that's what'll be in
Even,
Kenobi.
even if it was just like a societal thing like we're talking about in rights,
Think about this.
You know what I mean?
Think about this.
follow the life of one young Tuscan trying
Yeah.
to make his way. Just a simple man trying to
Think
make his
about
way
this.
in the universe.
How, if you're John Jackson Miller, and you've written some Star Wars books, and you've got Kenobi the book, and you introduce a character named Ayark, and they're like, yeah, but that doesn't count, that's not canon. And you bring her back in to canon with a short story from a certain point of view, and the way that he writes that character from the short story appears that she's one of the Tuscans that is watching from a distance in A New Hope. So now your character is not just canon, but your character that you've written is now in A New Hope retroactively. And then just imagine if she is in the Kenobi series and a Tuscan walks up and has that red jewel in one eye,
It'd be cool.
I dare say the shirt could come off, which is my promise every single time something like that happens. You guys have been biding your time so far. Nothing's happened yet. That my shirts had to come off. I did take a picture of that one time that Boba Fett was confirmed for The Mandalorian. But very cool stuff. I'm excited to see them in Mandalorian Season 2, and I know we're going to get a lot of them in the Kenobi series. Mm-hmm. And even though it's only going to be 4 to 6 parts, that's still 4 to 6 hours of material.
And while, dare I say, it's never enough, I am looking forward to 4 to 6 hours of my boy Ewan.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I could watch a Ewan show like that. If anybody that's watching this has an Apple TV login they want to share with me, I really want to watch Long Way Up, the new Ewan McGregor, and they added the other 2 series to Apple TV.
Very good.
Long Way Round, Long Way Down. Well, I guess it's down, but it's down under, and Long Way Up from South America.
It's all very good.
They're new with electric motorcycles this time, which is kind of a PC move, but it seems like it would. I think it would make it harder. Which is what I'm here for. I'm here for struggle. I want to see them really
I think
try.
My favorite thing about Long Way Round was that they had their film guy. Mm-hmm. And Ewan and his buddy, I can never remember that guy's name.
Charlie.
Are, on these, like, specially selected motorcycles. They've got all the gear, and they're having all this trouble getting through.
BMWs, yeah.
They're getting through this material, and then you got the film guy. He's on this little moped, and he's just cruising through, just like one he bought in a village somewhere, and he's just all the way around the world, man.
Yeah.
I freaking love that. That's hilarious.
Yeah, I would keep that thing forever.
Yeah.
So cool. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Stuff like this really gets us going. Little crap like this. Tuscan Raiders, man, they do it for me. And so, like I said before, please, if you're watching this on YouTube, like this video, subscribe to the channel, share this video, click the notification bell so you see when we put stuff out. I'm thinking when Mando comes out, we might have to do some double time and put out some bonus stuff, because I can't just sit around for the whole season and just talk about it once. I'm going to be fiending every week, but I don't want to make that the episode every week.
Yeah.
So that means my wife's going to be mad at me for 8 weeks. No, she'll be fine. But if you're watching this, like I said, like, subscribe, share, and click the notification bell. If you're watching or listening on Spotify, share it with your friends. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, leave us a review and leave us a 5-star rating. Nothing less, please. And like I said before, if you're going to write something, please make it something we can read on the air. Nothing crazy or strange. Thank you guys so much. May the Force be with you.
And, even if it's a Dances with Wolves type Sherrod-Het scenario where you're the outsider,
I'm always wondering how he's going to bring this in.
You can just count on the fact that...
Rest assured.
The only family you have here is me.
We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.